How's it going? You may well know that there's been a lot of violent escalations in Israel-Palestine at the moment. The first we heard about it, of course, was at the start of the week when Hamas had an organised thing where they kidnapped a load of Israelis. And I heard about it on the news, and the way the news was reporting it was that these will probably be exchanged for Palestinian prisoners that Israel's holding. And yet the whole tenor of the news report was, oh, how awful these awful terrorists have attacked Israel. Anyway, let me just ask you to think about something. Just imagine a hypothetical situation. Imagine you and your family live somewhere, right? Imagine that. That so far should not be difficult to imagine. Imagine you and your family live somewhere, and imagine maybe it's somewhere that you and your family have lived for many generations, right? And there's a lot of, there's a lot of social turmoil. In fact, imagine a global war happens. Imagine that. And then at the end of the global war, an organisation like the United Nations is set up to try and make sure there's no more global wars in the future and that people in the world work together a bit more. Imagine that happens. And one of the first things that this organisation does is they pass a rule saying that the place where you live with your family, that you and your family have always lived, as far as you're concerned, they pass a rule saying that actually somebody else can come there now. There was a lot of problems in Europe, so all of the Jews can now live in Israel. Great, what a solution. And it lines up perfectly with what's in the Torah, the promised land. I mean, if you keep reading after the Torah into the book of Joshua, you can see a very stark parallel with what actually happened in the 20th century in Israel. But I'm not going to get into that in a huge way just now. I'm just going to ask you to imagine this hypothetical. So far, you and your family live somewhere, and there's been a global war, and after the global war, there's a big international organisation set up to make sure there's no more war, and everybody's at peace, and everyone has a great time. And one of the things they've done is decide that the part of the world you live in belongs to somebody else now. And that's fine. Everything's going to be fine. We're all going to live happily together. It's going to be great. Is that what happened? Is it? I'll tell you what, let's move forward a generation or so to 1966. And let's imagine that over that time period, Israel has set up a whole load of fences and penned off the people that were there before into reservations. Let's just have a look at that situation and see how similar it is to the apartheid of South Africa that every country in the world roundly criticised. Let's fast forward to today. Let's fast forward 4 or 5 generations later and imagine what it's like to live behind concrete walls without basic support. You know that some decades ago, an international airport was built in Palestine. Do you know how long it stood for? 5 months before Israel flattened it. For an international airport. So just imagine that you come from such a family. You don't have any, there's no other place you can live except behind these walls being fired at by Israeli soldiers. It doesn't take much. Go and look up on YouTube and see if you can find some videos of Israeli soldiers taking pot shots at Palestinian children to pass the time. See if you can find that. I don't think you'll take long to find it. Maybe not on YouTube. Maybe on YouTube though. So I just want you to imagine yourself for 5 minutes. It's not difficult. Just 5 minutes of hypothetical. Just put yourself in that position. And just think how you would feel. And what options would be open to you? Imagine that happened in the USA or Britain or wherever you live right now. Imagine if it had always been happening for the last 4 or 5 generations. Imagine if your parents or grandparents had been killed in a way that you didn't understand for reasons you didn't know. Imagine that. Imagine people you knew had been kidnapped by the Israeli government, who runs on American money, by the way. This isn't conspiracy theory stuff. We all know how Israel's able to afford the big bombs and the big guns and the missile defense system and all that crap. It's because America funds them, because America's run by fundamentalist Christians looking to bring about the second coming of Jesus. And Israel's quite happy with that because they're looking for the Messiah to come for the first time. It's all religious rubbish. I mean, that's the reason that the UN was so favourable of setting up the modern state of Israel in the first place, because Zionists involved in that organisation were keen to tick off all the boxes of what they saw as the things that were going to signal the end times. I mean, if you actually look at the Christian Bible, you can see that actually the thing that's going to bring around the end times is essentially, preaching peace on earth and goodwill to all men. But that doesn't seem to be part of the, the real life Christian practice, as far as I can see anyway from the news. So anyway, yesterday morning, there was a hospital in Palestine. A Palestinian hospital. Thousands, well, I think it was hundreds, they said. So let's keep it at hundreds. Hundreds of innocent civilians killed in an explosion at a hospital. Now it stands to reason, doesn't it, that Israel bombed that hospital. First thing Israel did was put out a statement saying that Hamas was trying to fire a missile at Israel and it didn't work and they blew up their own hospital. That is what Israel have claimed. I, first of all, think it's amazing that Israel has such good intelligence that it's able to make such a public statement immediately, as though it knew it was going to happen in advance, in fact. And I also think it's disgusting for Israel to bomb a hospital and blame that on the Palestinians. How would you feel? Remember, we're still in the hypothetical. How would you feel if your relatives were in that hospital suffering from a conflict that you personally were not involved in and had no interest in perpetuating, and then the big guys who run the big government come and bomb your hospital? Can you imagine how you would feel penned up behind your concrete walls? What options are open to those people? Would you fight for your independence? Would you fight for your freedom? Imagine asking any US citizen today, would you fight for your independence? Would you fight for your freedom if it was threatened? They would all say yes. Oh yeah, definitely fight for that. Freedom and independence? What do you think the Palestinians are fighting for? Why do you think they have to fight in the first place? I follow a lot of atheists on YouTube. I don't follow so many religious people, but a few. But it is largely atheists I'm interested in because they have a very interesting perspective on their former religions, these ones that I follow anyway. Some of them are ex-Christian and some of them are ex-Muslim. And I'll tell you what, there's one or two of the ex-Muslim ones who I did formerly respect a great deal because I've learned a lot from them. I now no longer have any respect for. And I'm very surprised at which ones it is. Racists, bigots, that's what they are. I'll tell you what. Palestinians are not all Muslim. There are Muslim Palestinians, there are Christian Palestinians, there are atheist Palestinians. So if someone is banging on about how the Arab mindset is such that you can't reason with them and violence is all they understand, a la apostate prophet and David Wood, then you are a racist and a bigot. You just hate Arabs. That's it. You don't have something against Islam and that's why you don't support Palestine. You are an anti-Arab racist, if that's how you feel. And it's not peace on earth and goodwill to all men. It's not the Christian message. David Wood in particular, who is a professed Christian and supposedly a pastor. It makes me physically disgusted. Anyway, if I am wrong and if I have missed anything, please enlighten me in the comments. Because I would love to know why I'm wrong if you think I'm wrong. If you think Israel's great and they're the good guys and they're innocent and these horrible, dirty Arabs are all terrorists and they're all, need to be exterminated. Because that's what's going to happen. Israel are going to use this as an excuse for the final push. To exterminate them. Is that what you want to support? I mean, nobody's going to come back to you. Dead people can't come back to you. Now, I realise how Godwin's law works, but I do find it incredibly, incredibly ironic to see how Israel has behaved since 1948, considering the circumstances that led to its creation in 1948 in the first place. And I hope that you and everyone else in the world reflects very carefully on the actual issues surrounding this. Now, I don't condone violence. I don't think it's a good idea to bomb people, and I don't think it's a good idea to kidnap people. I don't think terrorism is the answer, as you should have easily seen from what I've just said, because ultimately I think that if this is terrorism that Hamas started, the outcome is going to be the extermination of Palestinians by Israel. That's the outcome. It's not going to be the outcome that Hamas is looking for, is it? So terrorism doesn't work. But all I'm asking you to think about in this hypothetical is what options would be available to you if your independence and your freedom were being taken away in such a brutal, horrific way over generations. What would you do if you were a Palestinian? Anyway, you can see it makes me furious. And it makes me furious to see so many videos of so many prominent YouTubers that I used to respect banging on about these terrible terrorists and Islam this and Arabs that. It's disgusting. You should all be ashamed of yourselves if that's you. If you're one of those YouTubers, I doubt you are. This channel, by the way, thank you to everyone who is subscribed and everyone who does view the videos, but it's a handful. It's a very small handful. It's not the millions that, or the tens or hundreds of thousands that these other people have got, so I don't expect any of them will see this, but you know what? If they do, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Live and let live is the central philosophy of integrational polytheism, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's the only way for people to actually, well, it should be obvious, the only way for people to live in the world. Live and let live. So that's it. That's all I've got to say today. Be excellent to each other. And have a good day.